What's up, hobby maniacs? Today I'm going to show you how to paint gold, more specifically gold trim. It's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's one of the most time-consuming parts of doing a project, an airbrushing project, because you basically do all your airbrushing and then you spend hours doing out the trim and weathering the trim. But the weathering part's always the funnest for me. So first off, I just grab whatever gold I want to use. For this instance, I used burnished gold, and then I made a custom mix of, I think it was Nuln Oil and then Agrax Earthshade. I used 3 parts Agrax to 1 part Nuln, and then I splashed in a little of the Reichsland Flesh Shade just to give it that little bit of redness, but nothing too crazy. The big part about this process, once you go through and you base coat all of your gold trim, is grab you a nice chiseled brush like you see there. That's A lot of people say you use wash brushes, but what I prefer to use is the chiseled brush, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a little bit more ability to, I guess it is, direct where you put the wash. As far as, like, if you grab a wash brush, it sucks in all of this wash, and then when you put it down, it just kind of plops in everywhere. With the chisel tip, you have a little bit more ability to kind of direct where you're going with that. So what I like to do is kind of how you see in the video right now, where I'm basically using the flat edge for all the flat parts, and then you'll see me use the chisel tip to get in and get the nice side parts, and so it doesn't bleed over into that nice airbrushing transition that I did on this armor plate. So now I'm kind of checking my angle right here, and then I'm just kind of hitting it, going on a little thick, because what you want to do is you want to make sure it kind of coalesces around the rivets, because you want those rivets to have that kind of contrast around them. And it's really good, because then you come back with your highlight color and you just boop, just kind of dot that rivet, and it gives it that awesome looking contrast. And then don't forget, hit the edges too. You want to be super careful with your fingers, so you're getting any of that. You kind of see me flicking my fingers, so I don't get any wash on my fingers, and then I kind of stamp it onto the armor plate. That won't look good. Always have a safe place to put your stuff. Like, I'm gonna put it down on that paper towel so nothing chips. And then I have a little tabletop fan, where I just basically have that blown on everything. Once it's dry, make sure it's dry. I got a custom mix that I made up for the highlight color, which is basically burnished gold, and I think it's chrome, Vallejo Air Chrome. So you get that nice high, really high, almost like a steel color. All of these colors, I feel like, have the same base metal. I think it's mithril from the old days. So they're basically all a variant of mithril silver. So you can mix and match the golds and the bronzes and all that stuff all around. Don't be afraid to. So I'm gonna take up that gold to that kind of color you see there, and then I'm basically gonna get a nice thin brush, a very straight edge brush you see there, a very straight brush. I'm gonna dip it in the paint, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually edge the plates. I'm not gonna actually paint on. I'm gonna turn it to the side, and I'm gonna run the edge of the brush along. You see it right there. I'm running it along the very point straight edge of the armor plate, so it gives it that pop. You're still going to see where the wash is. You're still going to see where the burnished gold is, and it's very little work. You're just basically dragging something along an edge. So you want to make sure you get a nice base of paint all along. You can see it on my brush tips there. You can see it. It's almost half the brush, the bristles themselves, and I'm just basically dragging it along the edge. It goes quick. And then I hit the little dots of the rivets too. You can also see where I use my pinky finger to kind of support. So I'm using it kind of to make this little, like, I guess, ad hoc little assembly for me to basically drag my brush and have really good positioning, because I'm out in space. Like, I've got my elbows braced on the table or on the armrest, but I'm basically out in space when it comes to my hands. So if I lock my hands together, it gives me greater control over it. And there you can see where I've edged it all, and you get that nice contrast, that nice contrasting highlight. So I put it down to let it dry, and now I come back to the quote-unquote finished product. And then you can stop here. It's perfectly okay, because you got a highlight, you got a contrast, and you've got all your rivets done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a page Kenny at Next Level Painting, and I'm going to weather it, because that's going to create an even higher amount of contrast on the model. Now remember, this is a Knight Titan. This is an armor plate to a knight. So, you know, I'm going to have all sorts of metals and things like that too. So I'm going to have these armor plates with these really nice color gradients, but I'm also going to have these metals all over, you know, so I want to have something to bring all of that together, because I'm not going to have gold trim on those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weather it. I'm going to use the Typhus Corrosion. There you can see the positioning of the plates. So I'm kind of checking where they go, kind of checking, because I'm kind of doing it ad hoc, not on the model. So I'm going to kind of check and see where my positioning is going to be. And then I come back and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to put corrosion on the chest, like he got splashed with some acid or, you know, whatever, just some junk built up there in the chest. So I'm going to come in with a tore up brush, which is basically, it looks like it was an old wash brush I cut down. You know, always save your brushes, because you can cut them down, you can cut them down. And then I just go in there really, really kind of lackadaisical with just a splash of that Typhus Corrosion. Make sure you saw me, you saw me shaking it up earlier and right here. Make sure you shake it up. You want to get a good mix. You want to get that all that sediment up out of the bottom and actually into the actual liquid itself. So then I'm just kind of splashing it. And you see I take those like crazy pointed ends, you know, kind of like your hair when you wake up in the morning, you got hair everywhere, you know, and I'm just kind of dabbing those ends all up on the sides, and you see that like spray pattern. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me some transition when I come in here with this RZA Rust or Ryza Rust, not RZA. It's not part of the Wu-Tang Clan as much as I would like it to be, but I'm going to come in here with the RZA Rust. I'm going to get some sponge, and you can use sponge for the Typhus Corrosion too. I'm just going to get some pluck foam. I think it's Sable pluck foam. I'm just going to kind of tear it. It's going to make some all sorts of highs and lows there. I'm going to try to even it out, get a nice flat-ish kind of base to sponge on. The key with sponging, I feel like, is that you want the surface almost flat. And then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of squeeze the tip. You're going to see me squeezing the tip a lot here, because what that does is that gives you control with both of your fingers. So I'm going to dab it into paint, and you know, this rust stuff, it's a thick paint. You don't have to shake it up or anything like that. It's like a dry, kind of like the Citadel dry line. So I'm just going to kind of dab it on a piece of paper towel, which is super important. You don't want to go in hot with all that liquid on it. You want to dab it off kind of like you're dry brushing, like you see me doing here. It's very important. Then, so you just kind of dabbing it off, kind of squeezing the tip, and right there, that last pattern, okay, it's ready to go. I got it. I got just enough material on here, so it's hard to see because my fat fingers covering it up, but I'm squeezing and I'm just kind of dabbing very lightly. You can kind of tell how much control I got going on there. Just very light dabs right over the Typhus Corrosion, just kind of picking out some of that corrosion. And then some, it's going to, of course, get on some of that trim. It's going to get on some of the highlights. It's fine. It's going to tie the whole piece together, and that's what you want. So you see there, I kind of made that pattern. It looks really good. It picked up some of the texture from the RZA, or from the Typhus Corrosion. It picked up and put up on some of the, you know, some of the dark areas there. And I'm just kind of like, we'll go in. We'll get around the curves of the armor plate, like on the lips of the trim. Very important. And I'm just gonna kind of save that for doing the rest of the model, because you know, you have one for your Typhus Corrosion, you have one for your RZA Rust. You're good to go. Don't mix them. You want them to be separate. Now I'm gonna grab my, what is it, Nihilate Oxide. That is more of a liquid. You're gonna brush it on. It's not exactly a wash. Make sure you shake it up really well. It's kind of a thing you brush on. You want your drip patterns all brushed on. Generally, where you see this oxidization is in between metal plates, and also kind of like around rivets, you know, where it follows rust. So it's always going to go hand in hand with rust, unless you have a metal that I think that can't rust, something like brass. You know, it's really just going to get that carbon scoring on it, and get that oxidization and things. So I'm basically just kind of using it very sparingly, just kind of where some of the plates meet, and then kind of over on the edge around the little rivet there. So that's pretty much it. Now I got a weathered plate. Now I can match it up to some other stuff, some other metals and things on the Knight Titan, and it's all good to go. So, you know, that, like I said, you can perfectly stop where I was earlier, or to tie it all together, kind of like, you know, you want to use a little bit more transition that you can work. It's kind of color. It's the same as in theory as color spotting, I guess. So you want to definitely make sure that that you try some of that. So that's about it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed my latest painting tutorial. Oh, and one more thing too I wanted to talk about. I have a problem with cat hair. So at the end of when I'm done, I am going to basically cover up my paint area with a paper towel so I'm not getting all those cat hairs and things on there. So make sure you stay in the trenches, subscribe to this YouTube channel, check out the blog spikybitsblog.com, and listen to our podcast.